Welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show, live here on National Signing Day. Appreciate Sonny Ship stopping by earlier in the hour. And Billy Embody for closing out the hour with us, two of the most well-respected recruiting followers, analysts out there that you can follow at Go247. Hit up our boy Billy Embody. He is covering today for Go247 Sports, as he is at Billy Embody on Twitter. Good morning, William. How are you?
Doing well, Jordy. How about you?
Doing okay, buddy. Quincy Wiggins is set to announce here in about 25 minutes. How we feeling?
I think LSU's in a really good spot. You know, I talked with Jeff Jones, the assistant principal over there at Masson Prep yesterday for a while, and it was down to Alabama, Florida, and LSU, and it seemed like more of a Florida-LSU battle, but LSU's done the work here. You know, recruited him through the coaching change really hard. Andre Carter deserves a ton of credit if they end up getting him for the way he's handled everything through the coaching search, and LSU just really impressed him over the weekend with his official visit. So I think LSU's off to a good start in a little bit here if Quincy Wiggins obviously comes on board, and I expect that to be the case.
Kendrick Law is a name that's created a lot of buzz throughout this recruiting process, and it seems like he's the big name on a lot of schools' board this morning. How do you feel about his recruiting? I know he's not set to announce for another 72 hours, but as we come down the stretch here of his recruitment, where and what and who is trending?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest question of the early signing period for LSU, quite honestly, is where does Kendrick Law end up? He's somebody that through the coaching change, you know, Alabama really, you know, generated a lot of buzz with his recruitment, as well as Florida State, you know, dating back to the summer with the Seminoles. But I think LSU has made a good push here. He was on campus for the Texas A&M game as an unofficial visitor, and then came with his family for the official visit this past weekend, and I think things went pretty well. I do think he's letting the dust settle from his official visit, which is why you're seeing him announce a little bit later. He and his camp have kept things pretty quiet, but I just think this is somebody that doesn't end up leaving Louisiana at this point. But honestly, with the way he's going to just handle his recruitment, with it being so quiet and everything like that, there's still that shot that he does end up elsewhere. But as it stands, you know, Wednesday morning, I like LSU and where they sit for Kendrick Law.
We have some questions coming in from our listeners about specific players, Billy, that want to ask. We'll use the hashtag #AskBilly about questions or anybody that you may be curious about going into today. Billy, I'll ask you just one from a philosophical standpoint. Shaz, Preston, and Aaron Anderson look like they will be at Alabama. LSU usually doesn't sweat wide receivers, but when they come out of South Louisiana, those are a couple of big hits. Can LSU overcome that, and how big of takeaways are those from LSU from the Tide?
Yeah, I think Aaron Anderson is somebody that as soon as Ed Ogeron was let go, that kind of sent things into a lot of questions, and would he end up at LSU? And I think, you know, for him, he's somebody that can make a difference in so many different ways. He's really a sawed-off wide receiver, you know, only about 5'8", maybe on a good day, but he's thick, he's built really well, and he makes big plays in the return game. He's that gadget player that a lot of offenses in college football would love to have right now. So I think that one hurts in that point. You know, I know there was some, you know, last-minute hope that maybe LSU would jump back in there, but we're hearing that he's going to end up at Alabama, and that hurts when you miss out on difference makers like that. And Shaz Preston has been one for a long time as well, and he's set to announce later this afternoon on ESPN. So we'll be tracking that one just because of the relationship with Frank Wilson that he and his family have, dating back to really Frank's sons playing with Sean Preston Jr., who's at Mississippi State now. But it does seem like he's going to end up at Alabama. I think it hurts. You know, there's the point that you can land really good quality prospects late, like Landon Ibieta out of Mandeville, which they flipped from Miami, but you still need to get those difference makers just overall. So it hurts from that perspective, especially where the wide receiver room is right now. But they do have, you know, that long-term future built pretty well with guys like Tayshaun Boutte, Jack Besh, Malik Neighbors, players like that. So you hate to see it if you're an LSU fan, but it's just one of those things that through a coaching search, seems like it was tough to overcome.
Hughes Bowden asks, hashtag Ask Billy, Julian Armella, one of the top tackles in the country, he's out of South Florida, has pushed back his signing to February. Is this good news for LSU?
Anytime you see somebody push back their college decision, it's good. You know, if you're feeling like you're on the outside looking in, which LSU was going into today, they're going to try to get him on campus for an official visit. Brad Davis was down in South Florida recruiting him and his teammate and LSU commit Mason Taylor as well. So they're going to try to get him on campus for an official visit, which they're allowed to because of the coaching change. He visited in June. But right now, it does seem like it's kind of an uphill battle. But if he makes that official visit, you know, all bets are kind of off there.
Bill, we've talked to Tack Miner a few times on here. Denver Harris, is it? I mean, he kind of seemed like LSU really hadn't spoken with them a lot lately. What's the feeling on him? I don't think he's supposed to sign today, right? But I know he was on here yesterday and just didn't feel like he was super solid.
Yeah, there's been kind of that wonder of what's going to happen with Denver Harris. Is he going to sign? Is he not? We're hearing that he is supposed to sign. He's been an early enrollee from everything we've heard, and he left his Texas A&M visit on Sunday, you know, indicating that he was going to sign during the early period. We'll see if that changes. North Shore is going to play for a state championship this weekend against Duncanville in the state of Texas. So he's got a lot on his plate this week. If he doesn't sign today, that's good for LSU. But right now, it seems like things are kind of, you know, in that uncertain spot for Denver Harris. And honestly, with him, nothing would surprise me. I don't know if that's good or bad for LSU, but it seems like there's a bunch of different ways that one could go between Texas A&M. Could LSU be the shocker with that one? I know he was very close to Corey Raymond, and that was a big part of his decision process. But, you know, he's just one of those guys that you really are watching and seeing, you know, if LSU can kind of pull a rabbit out of its hat.
Hashtag Ask Billy. Max Phillips asks about LaTerrence Welch and where his recruitment stands going into signing day. Is there any leaning towards Arkansas?
We're hearing that things are in a good spot with LaTerrence Welch and LSU. You know, Arkansas did a really good job recruiting him start to finish, posted him on an official visit just before LSU did. But all indications are that he's probably going to end up at LSU, which is a huge deal, especially since Jadarian Rhyme just ended up flipping to Auburn, something that was expected once Corey Raymond left for Florida. But we're watching LaTerrence Welch, but everything we've heard is that LSU sits in a good spot to land his NL run.
Another one, hashtag Ask Billy. This one from H. Reed. Billy, when will Miles Frazier sign, and how much does LSU make sense for him? LSU in the final three for Miles Frazier with a couple of other schools, and he is the Florida International offensive lineman and one of the top transfers in the country.
Miles Frazier doesn't have to sign, really. He can just kind of enroll at his college. I know we're seeing some players in the transfer portal sign today. Landon Jackson, who transferred from LSU, just signed with Arkansas, but he doesn't necessarily have to sign today. Everything we're hearing is LSU's in a good spot. They're battling Ohio State from what we hear. Miles and his family are trying to see if they can somehow work up a visit to Ohio State, but that's kind of, you know, in question, I guess, with the dead period in place for transfers as well. But, you know, they did a really good job on that official visit. I like where LSU sits for Miles Frazier. He'd be a plug-and-play starter at one of the offensive tackle spots for LSU. He's honestly a must-get for LSU with where their offensive line stands right now.
Michael Duhan, hashtag Ask Billy. Danny Lewis, tight end out of Westgate, put on a show last weekend in the state championship game in front of Keyshawn Butte, took home Westgate's first state title. Where does he stand from LSU's standpoint?
LSU's got him on the board, and it is, you know, keeping an eye on him as far as what they're going to do in the spring. Danny told me that he's going to sign late. I know Florida just offered, so that's something that he's going to look into. If LSU makes the move there, you've got to like LSU's chances just being the in-state school. And one thing I'll note too, Cincinnati's really evaluated tight ends well and got on him early to land his commitment. So that might be one of those sleepers we watch in the spring period if LSU makes a move and gets him on board.
Vaughn No says, hashtag Ask Billy. Billy, what are you hearing on A.J. Allen, running back? Is that a running back?
A.J. Allen out of Neville. He's a teammate with Will Campbell and a really, really good running back. He was on TCU's campus for an official visit this past weekend. He's been a long-time cornflake commit through the coaching change. But right now he was undecided as to whether he was going to sign late or not. But LSU had not really made any contact from when I talked to AJ over the weekend. I know Mississippi State's been pushing him as well, and there's somebody to watch for him if he does end up signing early. But as of right now, we hadn't heard of any contact with LSU and AJ Allen.
Hashtag Ask Billy from Semperfied. Ask Billy, any update on a transfer quarterback?
No updates on a transfer quarterback so far, but with the way Max Johnson left in the quarterback room, I think they've got to target one, and there are a lot of good ones out there. I'm not necessarily sure who they're going to go after, but we've seen Spencer Rattler make his decision, Quinn Ewers make his decision, but right now we don't really know who they're targeting in that transfer portal at quarterback. But again, LSU really probably needs to address the quarterback position in a big way, and he'd be one quarterback would be something to watch for in the spring and maybe even the summer. Joe Burrow was a spring guy who ended up going through that process and picking LSU.
A lot of people think that Miles Brennan's going to pull his name out of the portal. Do you feel that?
Haven't heard too much on that. I think for Miles, there's a ton of opportunity for him to, come back to LSU and compete, but haven't heard any decision either way as far as what he's feeling, what he wants to do on that front just yet.
Billy Embody joining us here on the Jordy Culotta Show. It is National Signing Day. Billy, what's the day like for you, buddy? I mean, are we stealing some time from you?
It is,
okay, that was
that was a courtesy laugh.
Yes.
Like, okay, get me out of here.
Yes, you dickhead. Quick with the fan questions, for God's sakes.
I'll chop it up all day with you guys. You guys are the best, to us. But I mean, honestly, it is just one of those days where you're scanning Twitter, having your ducks in a row. I mean, we're seeing signees come in left and right for LSU already, and Quincy Wiggins is about to announce here. So maybe, we'll carry that live on here, and it might pop
that'd be beautiful.
while we're on the phone still with that 9 a.m. decision time for him.
I see that they're starting to walk and make their way into the gym over at Madison Prep as we are monitoring that live. Billy, I'll ask you this on the coaches, and you mentioned Coach Andre Carter and how much he meant and was instrumental on Quincy's recruitment. I know that not a lot of people understand what Kelly is doing from a coaching standpoint. Are you hearing anything on Andre Carter that he'll have an opportunity to be on this staff permanently? I'd imagine if Quincy Wiggins commits here in the next couple of minutes, that will be a huge feather in his cap as far as the negotiation goes.
You're absolutely right on the huge feather in the cap, and Quincy has made no bones about it that he's got a great relationship with Andre Carter. And I think without a defensive coordinator being hired, that's something that I think will make or break, so to speak, whether he ends up coming back to LSU. He was involved with the official visits this weekend, which is a good sign just as far as what Brian Kelly thinks about him. We saw DJ Mangas, get moved on from by Brian Kelly, and he wasn't involved with visits this weekend. But Andre Carter was, and so I think that speaks to the job he's done, what Brian Kelly thinks of him. So I think there's a shot he stays on staff, but until we get that word of the defensive coordinator, it's up in the air for sure.
Robbie White, hashtag Ask Billy. Bill, how far behind is LSU when coming to NIL deals, and how much is NIL playing into this recruitment? This has got to be one of the wackiest recruitments you've covered, being that this is the first one that has so much of NIL and, just out loud money on it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's out loud now. And the thing about it is I wouldn't say LSU is behind. And the thing that fans across the country, not just, LSU, got to understand with this too, is it takes boosters and donors to get together and make that concerted effort to put together these collectives or these organizations that are teaming up as LSU alums or Texas or whoever to put together these packages for players. And the NCAA is watching really closely, for these collectives and how they're recruiting prospects. And I think most prospects are watching what current players get, and that's kind of the big thing that we're keeping an eye on over this thing unfolding. A lot of schools are still figuring it out, but the schools can't really be involved in any way. It's kind of compliance, just saying yes, you can do that, no, you can't, things like that, and that's where people need to kind of understand what's going on there, because it's a process. But I think when you see some of these local deals come about and players get those, that's where LSU is right there with other schools on, and it's just something that as the marketing and as the brand awareness for these players goes up and they recognize it, you'll see it become a bigger part. But right now it's just kind of a guessing game as far as how these players deal with that, and it's not something that LSU's behind on. It's just more so they haven't really, we haven't seen that collective be announced and things like that.
Landon Lewis, hashtag Ask Billy. How about Harold Perkins and his recruitment?
Harold Perkins is going to take it to the spring, is what we've heard. So whether he announces it on January 2nd at the Under Armour game or not, LSU's right in the mix, and who knows? He might push back his decision, but it's been an LSU A&M battle for a while, and that's how I kind of see it playing out. That's one of those where nothing will surprise me. He was at Texas A&M for an unofficial visit this weekend and made his way over there. But LSU, as long as he doesn't sign today, certainly has a chance to land him, and they're right there for him.
All right, Billy, they are obviously, like we've seen this many a time, stretching out the Quincy Wiggins announcement. They are doing a lot of wasting time over on the campus.
And you can hardly see them. The quality
Madison Prep. Yeah, the quality, it shows how hard it is to stream. So we appreciate you stopping in for a couple of minutes. I know your phone is be buzzing. We might go extended time today. You'll probably get another text message from you, so I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Sounds good, Jordy. Thanks for having me.
Always. There's Billy Embody checking in from 247 this morning.
Damn,
make sure you are
ask about
covering
the fax machine.
The fax machine.
Damn.
Call him back.